Hi everyone, I hope you're doing really well. My name is Aveline from An Empath's Guide Book Reviews, and I'm here today outside on a very lovely sunny day, which is very nice, to do a book review. And the book that I've decided to review today is called Shades of Milk and Honey by Mary Robinette Kowal. So I decided to read this book because Mary Robinette Kowal is actually a host on my favorite writing podcast, Writing Excuses, and the way that she talks about writing and books is just very enlightening, and she clearly knows her stuff. So I decided to check out her book and I was not disappointed. So this book is actually a Jane Austen tribute novel. So it is a romance novel set in Regency England, and the main character's name is Jane. But this is not your everyday Jane Austen tribute because it has something different in it that I also quite like, which is magic. And there's a quote on the front from a review by Sherry Priest, and she says, "One part meticulous manners and one part wild magic," which I think is very on point. The magic in this book is not a high fantasy epic kind of magic. The magic is this art form called glamour. So I was very excited when I found out about this because glamour is an old type of fairy magic, and I haven't told you this before, but I'm a bit obsessed with fairies. Glamour is the magic of illusion. In Celtic folklore, they say that fairies can use magic for either good or evil. A fairy may, for example, see a man wandering along the country hills and she wants to disguise herself so that she'll come to no harm, and so she casts a glamour over herself to make herself look like a tree. A bad fairy might cast a glamour which creates the illusion of a path into a fairy burrow. And if a person happens to walk into a fairy burrow and eat one piece of fairy food or drink one sip of fairy drink, then they die. The magic in this book is a sensory illusion based on glamour, and it's not fairy glamour. It can be done by humans, and you do this by dipping into something called the ether, which is like the imagination, and pulling out folds to weave glamour, whether it's music notes or trees, and that is the art and the magic in this book. So this story is centered on Jane, and Jane is a 28-year-old woman who is, I think, defined by her accomplishment in the arts. So she's an amazing painter, she's great at piano, and she's also a highly skilled glamourist. Jane's problem arises because she's 28 and not married, which in the eyes of Regency England society pretty much makes her a perpetual spinster. And it's almost like she's resigned herself to this role as well, but it's kind of obvious to the reader that she's not really happy. Jane doesn't think that men will find her attractive, number one, and number two, she thinks that it's too proper to flirt with men anyway, but she kind of really wants to be married, so this creates problems. So there are two prominent themes, I think, in this book, and the first theme is the question, what are women valued for? Are they valued for their personality or their appearance or their talents and their hard work? This is really explored through the relationship between Jane and her sister Melody. So Jane is highly talented in the arts, and yet she is said to have sharp features, be very plain looking, and have an overlong nose. Whereas Melody is not so good at the arts, but she has long, flowing golden curls, she's got a swan-like neck, she's very graceful, and when she laughs, men turn their heads for miles around. So it really brings up this question of which woman is valued more and for what reason. The second theme was, for me, what really drew me into the book was the theme, what makes good art? In the characters' conversation, they talk about what makes good glamour and what makes for good creativity, and the power of raw emotion to art comes up. And I thought these conversations were really interesting. And the fact that they're being had in the 18th century, but still are very applicable to today, just made me feel like one constant in humanity has been the love and appreciation of art and creativity. Jane is a very relatable character. She is kind, she's fair, she's sensible, and in all the chaos and drama that happens in the book, as it does happen in a Jane Austen / Regency England novel, she kind of really centers you and anchors you into the book, because which is normal. A lot of the times when characters would act a certain way or something would happen, I would have a particular reaction and then Jane would have the exact same reaction. So I think that the relatability factor of the protagonist is high, which made me also really enjoy this book. The writing style is very easy to get into and it's quite relaxing. While I love Jane Austen, I often find it a bit hard to read because it's got that kind of older kind of language, so I have to concentrate more, but I didn't really have to do that because she uses kind of modern language while still being true to the Jane Austen time in Regency England, which would be a hard balance to strike, but the authors really struck it here, which was really good. The only thing that was not that great about this book is that what happened and the kind of relationships did end up to be a bit predictable. I could kind of guess those outcomes a little bit early on. But that said, it is a Jane Austen tribute novel and Jane Austen is a little bit predictable but still enjoyable. So if you're ready to make peace with that fact, I would suggest that you do before you pick up this book if you like Jane Austen, because you probably will guess some of the things that are going to happen. Not all of them, but you will guess some of those things. And it's so well written and it's so easy to read that you don't really seem to mind in the end. So I didn't mind. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I loved the inclusion of magic and fantasy into a Regency England setting because those are two things that I like. So very much my hot cup of tea. I would rate this book a 4 out of 5 stars. And that's all for the review. I hope that you enjoyed this review and that it was helpful. If you did, I'd be so grateful if you liked and subscribed to my channel. And if you do read this book, I'd love to chat about it if you would like to leave a comment, because it's pretty underrated. Not many people have heard of it, and I think that more people should because Mary did a really good job. Just as a little side note, I like to do a shout out to my grandma, because on the topic of women who are accomplished in the arts, my grandma actually hand stitched this shawl when she was pregnant with my mum's brother. And it's really intricate, like it's crazy, and it looks like something that you could buy in a shop and pay good money for, and it's just so beautiful. And she actually got a fabric pencil and drew on all the patterns of the flowers and like the leaves. Then she hand stitched it, and it took her probably around 9 months or 10 months. I think that's amazing. And while I'm kind of good at other art, stitching and textiles is definitely not one of them. So shout out to my grandma who lives in Arizona in the US at the moment. And I love you very much, and thank you for making the shawl so I could wear it in this video, and I love you. And on that note, I love all of you, and thank you so much for watching, and take care. Lots of love. Bye.